Hello, I'm Cheryl and welcome to my sewing room. I'm going to demonstrate how to make a very traditional oven mitt. But before I get started, I want to talk to you about patterns. I purchased a pattern to use as a base for creating this particular design of oven mitt. Now, you can get free patterns on the internet, but be cautious. Make sure that you know that website is secured and that they do virus checkers on their machine. To give you an example, a few years ago I downloaded a free pattern, was very excited, and then my machine immediately froze up and locked. It was not repairable. I had to buy a new computer. So that free pattern was very expensive. So I found it was cheaper just to buy one. And when you buy these patterns, they usually come with a pot holder design, a toaster cover, mixer cover. You get a whole bunch of patterns in one. So it's kind of worth it. All right, so let's look at the oven mitt that I'm going to make today. As you can see, it's very traditional in style. But when you buy these in a store, they're usually very bland, very blah. There's nothing exciting about them to look at. They're very utilitarian. So I like pretty things in my kitchen. So I chose this yellow background fabric with cherries and green leaves. And then to match the green, I picked this checkerboard fabric. And then to bring out more of the red, I selected red for the binding, and I also used red in the lining. Now it doesn't matter what you use in the lining because no one's going to see it. You can use just plain muslin if you like. It's kind of a light beige creamy looking color. Okay, now that we know what we're going to make, let's look at the pattern. Okay, now what I usually do is I always trace from my original pattern onto paper. And the reason why I do that is the purchased patterns are on very thin tissue paper. They tear easily and they don't last very long. So I just take that pattern and trace it onto paper. Now this paper is a little bit thicker than tissue paper and it lasts longer, and it comes on a roll like this. And I purchased this in a hardware store in the paint department, okay? Painters use this to mask off areas. This is a great investment, doesn't cost very much. You will find you'll use it a lot on all your sewing and crafting projects. All right, after you've traced your pattern, now you want to check to see if it's going to fit your hand. So you might have to alter this pattern, okay? So to give you an example, here's my hand on this. Now you can see there's a lot of space here. The width's not too bad, but it's really, really long. It's going to be hard to use this mitt because it's just going to get all bunched up. So if you want to shorten your pattern, you want to make sure you shorten it from the cutting line. This is the cutting line and this is the stitch line. And this is a 3/8 of an inch seam. So you need to make sure you measure from the cutting line. So I want to take off about 3/4 of an inch. I don't want it too snug. I want a little room. So you're going to just take a pencil and put a little mark there. I don't know if you can see it. And then you're just going to slowly begin to come towards the outer sides and feather it in like this. See what I'm doing? And then do the same thing here. Okay? And then of course don't forget to do your thumb if you need to adjust the thumb. All right, now maybe this pattern is not long enough. Now you probably have a really giant hand because this is a big glove, but you never know, you might be making it for a man who needs a bigger glove. So again, always measure from the cutting line. So let's say I want to add, a 1/4 of an inch. It needs just a little bit more finger room. So mark in the center here and then start to feather it out towards the outer edges. Okay, like this. I think you get the picture. All right, and then again, don't forget to do your thumb if it needs to be adjusted. Now, I made one of these for my husband, and he said the length was fine, but it was a little snug, tight across the palm of the hand and up here on the arm, the cuff area. So, when you measure to widen it, you want to understand something that, let's say you need at least a ½ inch more room. But when you go to widen, you want to cut that measurement in half and only mark a 1/4 inch. Because when you cut out the back, it will come out to a full ½ inch. Okay, I hope that makes sense. Just accept the fact you need to divide that measurement in half. So here's a 1/4 inch, and then start here and begin to, again, gradually bring that line out up to that point and then go all the way up to the top, okay? That's to widen. Always measure from the cutting line. I can't stress that enough. All right, now that we've altered the pattern if necessary, now we get to design our oven mitt, okay? This is the fun part. Now you need to determine how much of each piece of fabric you want to show. You might want more or you might want less. I wanted at least 3 inches to show, okay? So I'm going to add 2 inches to that 3, and I need at least a 5-inch width of a strip of fabric. Then this is about 6 inches. I'm going to add 2 inches, so now it's going to be 5 by 8. So I need a piece of fabric that's at least 5 by 8. You can round it up if you like. Then you want to measure from this seam line here down to the fingertips. Okay, again, add 2 inches to that. Then measure the widest point and add 2 inches to that. So let me show you what I came up with. Okay, now yours might vary. Now, if you have a camera phone near you, put the video on pause and take a snapshot. This way you don't have to write this all down. But remember, your pieces may be a little different. Okay, now for the upper section where the green was at, cut 2, 5 by 8.5. For the lower section where the cherries were, cut 2, 11 by 11. The binding, you only need to cut 1, 2 3/4 inches wide by at least 15 inches long. Remember, if you widened it, it's going to be bigger. All right, now for the lining, the cotton batting, and the Insulbright, you're going to cut 2 of each, 11 by 15. All right, now Insulbright is a synthetic fabric that helps to block the heat from penetrating through the oven mitt. All right, now let's start sewing the fabric together. Okay, now you want to center whatever fabric you're going to use up at the top of the mitt and pin it down, all right, and then stitch a 1/4 inch seam allowance, all right? Then press it with your iron and then fold it over and press again. Okay? All right, now you have it, your top part sewn together. Let's layer the fabrics. Okay, now you want to, let me take these pins out for a second. You want to put your lining piece down first, whatever you're going to use. Put it right side down, wrong side up. Then your 2 layers of insulation, and then whatever fabric you're going to use up on the top. Then you're going to prepare all of this to do quilting stitches, or I also call it top stitching. And when you do quilting stitches through this many layers of fabric, it's a good idea to use a walking foot. You can still do it without the walking foot, but it will shift your fabric a little bit. So it's a great investment. You'll use it a lot. In fact, you'll just love this foot. Now this little part here, some people get confused. They don't know what to do with this. This goes over the screw that holds your needle in. Okay, so that's what that is for. All right, so now you want to pin, or some quilters do hand basting through all of this. You can do that too. Or you can use the quilting safety pins, but because this is so small, I'm just going to use straight pins. And you want to just spread them out all over, and I put them at a diagonal because I'm going to be stitching in a diagonal. So after that, you're going to roll up one side like this and go to your sewing machine and begin stitching in this corner on diagonal, 1 inch apart. Okay, all the way across. Then when you're done, you're going to go over to this other corner, stitch across this way, and just roll it up. It's easier to control your fabric. Roll it and stitch 1 inch apart, again going in the opposite direction. Let me show you what it looks like. Okay. Now, you'll notice my stitches are not perfectly even. They're approximately 1 inch apart. Once you cut this oven mitt out, no one's going to notice how wide your stitches are, how perfectly distributed they are. Just eyeball it. Don't sweat over it. Remember, it's just an oven mitt. We're not entering a contest. Okay, now you're going to take your pattern, and I'm cutting out one side. I always label my pattern front and back, in case I forgot to mention that earlier. Label it front and back. So let's do front first. Line up this line onto your seam line and pin it down all the way around. Put your pins in. Then either with a very sharp pair of scissors or a rotary cutter, make sure everything's sharp because you're going through a lot of layers. I use a rotary cutter. It's just easier for me. Now, don't put your hand in front of the rotary cutter. Leave it off to the side and then slowly go around. Now, when you get to this corner here, you might need to use a pair of scissors. In fact, I advise very sharp tips to cut into that corner. Once you've cut that piece out, flip it over, reverse your pattern. Okay, reverse the pattern, pin and cut, line up that line, pin it around, and then cut. Okay? All right, now that you've got your pieces cut out, you're going to bring the right sides together. Now, if you didn't reverse that pattern and you cut out two like this, and you bring the right sides together, this is what you're going to get. You have a big problem. So that's why we reverse it. So when we bring the two sides together, they match up. Okay? So as you can see, I've got my right side, my outside part is now inside. This is my lining. Okay? So now you're going to pin or clip. Now, I like using clips because you've got 8 layers of fabric now. It's very thick and you might bend your pins. Here is another style of clip that is available. I don't like these as much. I don't feel like they hold it very well. They kind of slip off. So I prefer this style. But this one you can find in a lot of fabric stores in the notion department. You might have to order these off the internet. All right, so now that you've got it all pinned or clipped, you want to do a straight stitch, 3/8 of an inch seam allowance. Okay, then after you've done that, you're going to do a zigzag stitch. The zigzag here is to protect the edges from unraveling when you wash your oven mitt. It will get dirty, it's going to get washed many times, so do this zigzag stitch, or if you have a serger, run this through your serger. Then after you do that, you're going to need to take a very sharp pair of scissors and cut right into here. cut up to the stitches but not through the stitches. Okay, really important you do this. Otherwise, when you go to turn it right side out, it's going to really look bunchy in there and it's not going to lay very well. Then you're going to turn it right side out. And what I do, sometimes I need my husband to help me. He's got strong hands. You fold this in like that, and then you begin to turn it right side out. Okay? All right, let's move on. I hope all of that made sense. And let's get my next section here. You're going to take your binding and then fold it in half and press it with your iron. All right, set it aside. Now, this next part here, I have written down the instructions for you. Now, if you have a cell phone, put the video on pause and take a quick snapshot of this, because there's a lot of little steps and I don't want you to forget. Okay, you got it handy in your phone there. All right, let's move on. Now, take this strip of binding and put it up here at the top, okay? And I usually start pinning on the back. So pin it down, okay, all the way across. Then flip it back over to the front, and you're going to cut off the excess binding. So you want to make sure you leave at least a 1/2 inch overlap, a 1/2 inch. Okay, so fold that over and with your scissors cut off the excess. All right, now you're going to fold the glove in half. My husband came up with this idea because I was really struggling with the next step. And that is, take either a hair clip, I like hair clips better because it opens really wide, or a chip bag clip, and hold that together like that. Isn't that cool? Then you're not struggling. You're going to open up the 2 ends of binding, okay? You're going to bring those right sides together. Let me see if I can get them here. Bring them together, pin it down. Okay, I think you get the idea. Pin it down much better than that. Pin it all the way across. Then you're going to do a 1/4 inch seam allowance. Then finger press that seam open, and then fold the binding back in half and finish pinning it all around, okay? So finish pinning. Then go over to your sewing machine. Now, this next part's kind of cool. If you have a storage tray or an extension table on the back of your machine, remove it, because this next step is going to be really easy as long as you remove that. Then you want to slip this on the arm of your machine, and then as you stitch, you just rotate this arm, the glove, okay? Do you get the picture? All right, after you've done this, you're gonna take it off your machine, then you're gonna fold the binding over like this, and make sure this folded edge goes past your seam, pin it on the inside, okay? And then you're going to stitch in the ditch. And this is where 2 pieces of fabric come together. And you're going to stitch right up against that binding. Not on the binding, but real close. And again, go back over to your sewing machine, put it back on, okay? And use your walking foot during this step. Don't forget to use this walking foot. All right, and then again, stitch and turn the glove slowly, okay? All right, now you have completed one really pretty oven mitt that makes a great gift. Not only good for you in your kitchen, but good for other people too. Let me show you what it looks like in other fabric, okay? I really like this. I love teapots and coffee pots. I buy a lot of fabric like that. But as you see, I made this section bigger than this section, just because I wanted all of this to show. You can even take some of your leftover small quilt blocks and put it in here. Put a pinwheel, a star, whatever it is you want to make that goes with your kitchen. Now, if you want to make a pair of these as a gift, for instance, like someone who's getting married, like my daughter is here really soon, you can make a couple of pot holders to go with it. Okay, these are hanging pot holders. If you're interested in something like this, watch my video how to make a hanging pot holder. Now, if you want to know how to make a different style of oven mitt, look at this one. This one's really easy to make. And if you want to get instructions for this, watch my video how to make an oven mitt part A. So let me show you what's going to be in my next video. Okay, look at this. It's a toaster cover. So I'm going to show you how to make your own unique toaster cover that fits your personality, goes in with your kitchen, kind of brightens it all up. So to keep informed on all my future videos, click on subscribe at the bottom of your YouTube screen. There's usually a bold word there that says subscribe. You click on this and YouTube will ask you if you'd like to receive an email notification. Say yes, then enter your email address, and the next time I have a new video, YouTube sends you a brief email with a big button in the center. You click on that and it takes you directly to my latest video. I'm Cheryl. I'm really glad you came to my sewing room. See you next time, and happy sewing.